good house. I'm very, very happy here. I've had this idea for this film in my head for a long time, which was situated inside a house. At first I created a 3D house in my studio in London, with snippets of houses, little photos I had. I kind of cobbled it together like a collage house. And when I then went on my first recce trip to Detroit, the house that I actually ended up finding was almost identical to the house that I had already created, which was really weird. And the house was absolutely perfect. I made sure that I conquer the house before I start working in there. So I explored every single little corner and I made it mine. I decided not to be scared in there, even though potentially it was like a horror house, but it wasn't. It was a lovely house. It treated me well. I treated it well. It was just perfect. I decided to work with ordinary wall paint because things had to dry quickly. I paint on top of the painting again and again. So you paint a painting, you take a picture and then you paint over it again. So in a way, you destroy everything you've just done. At the moment, I'm tending to stick to smaller rooms, which I guess is the fear of the big room. The next room I'll do is the biggest room. My every room takes a lot longer than anticipated, and a lot of ideas come while you're doing it, which are not even in the storyline as such, but then it just emerges and makes a lot of sense. And I'm letting myself also drift with it and not get too bogged down with planning. The aim of my film was never to provide a social commentary on Detroit's history and socio-political issues. One of my previous films was selected at Ann Arbor Film Festival, just outside of Detroit. I met some people there who drove me around Detroit and I was completely gobsmacked by what I saw. I didn't have much of a clue about Detroit at all, I must admit. I knew the basics, but not much more. And I've been doing a lot of reading and been watching a lot of documentaries on it and obviously experienced a lot in person. I allowed it to permeate the atmosphere and mood of the narrative of the film. I am forever thankful to Detroit and its people to allow me and welcome me to their home. And it's a place that's greatly appealing to me, especially with what I think a lot of us have gone through in lockdown and kind of paring things back a little bit. For me, it just sits really right and it feels really good at the moment. I had just lost my dog Jody, who was my spirit animal. We were incredibly close, so I was really in mourning, and being so isolated in the house alone in London was really difficult, and my way to get over that was to throw myself into work. Next to me there was Joe in his trailer with his dog Alpha and later on his dog Stella. Alpha and me, we became very close, and the more I got to know him, the more I realized that he was so similar to Jody in his behavior that it was almost quite spooky.
This is my friend Alpha. He's protecting me. He's great and very big.
It was all so guided and so protected. It all made so much sense to be doing it there. Everything fell into place. Very much against the advice of all my Detroiti friends who said it's too dangerous to be in an abandoned house, but somehow I knew I would be okay. I didn't have electricity, there was no light, so I did most of the stuff with floodlights that I charged at Joe's place. I've just installed my lights, which are kind of a bit flimsy, but they'll do the trick. I very much mix techniques, and I'm quite disrespectful of normal ways of doing things because I actually don't really know what I'm doing. I've just taught myself everything. So I mix drawing, stop motion, the painting stop motion here. I also do digital stuff. I will do a lot of posts in London. This film was done in quite an unusual way because I was my whole team. I did everything myself, from DOP to props to editor to everything you can imagine. The fluffy bits actually came out of that hole in the ceiling. I really like the mix of the two very different textures. I went with what was in the house, and that was also the kind of deal with that house. I bought loads and loads of rhinestone strips and I stuck them to the ceiling, which wasn't easy because the ceiling was peeling off. I hung them really long and cut maybe 1.5 centimeters off, took a photo, cut 1.5 centimeters off, took a photo, and then I put it all in reverse so it looks like rain. It was quite a fab section to work on, and I think it was very successful because what appealed to me a lot was the glitz in the kind of decay, and in the end, with the light and everything, that room, which had such a peeling ceiling, it looked like a palace ceiling. It looked so grand and so beautiful. I had long days, smoked a lot of cigarettes, I listened to music, a lot of Detroit music. It's a very laborious process. There were days when I only achieved 2 seconds worth of film. A lot of physical work. The setup was very solitary. I worked 16 hours a day and I did that for 3 months. In a way, it didn't really make sense to have anyone else there because I was so in the zone of painting. What was very important to me in this project was the collaboration I did with the musicians in Detroit. My friend Chris opened his universe of all these amazing jazz, experimental, improv musicians and let me participate, which was very daunting. And we recorded around 40 hours of music. So the film music is a track that I wrote, and then these tracks that we recorded are nestled into it, like little things you plonk in here and there. When I got back to London, I did more editing, and then I added things in both analog and digital ways. So the film has quite a lot of mix of all sorts of different techniques. Also, I quite like confusing the viewer what they're actually looking at. And I think in this film, there's so many sequences where you're not really quite sure what it is you're looking at. And I quite like that confusion. It was physically very demanding, it was spiritually and intellectually very demanding. For me, that was a very liberating experience where I could immerse myself fully into my own little world, and it didn't have to please anyone, it didn't have to be commercial, and it was my little sanctuary.